Good morning, YouTube. It's your boy Zulu Gulla. Like, share, subscribe, comment. Catching y'all this morning. I'm gonna try to do a couple streams for y'all. So I think this is one of the ones that is keying in more than anything that needs to be heard. Uh, this is why I tell y'all that consistency is very big with me, right? Your message that you constantly put out with me has to be consistent. Um, and then you also have to be an adult, a man or a woman, to recognize when you've made a mistake, made an error, or announce a change of belief or way of doing things based upon you came to a realization, you done some type of work, some research or something, and found more evidence of something. Like, let me give you an example. I didn't necessarily agree with the pump and dump when I first heard about it because I thought that it was destructive to your soul and it will also cause destruction to other people. Um, Now, I also discovered when studying pump and dump, people, particularly men, have a reason to pump and dump because a female disqualifies herself. I also discovered that females pump and dump. So when, like I said, I came out of monk mode, I naturally wanted to go start back interacting with females and also reward myself with the company of a female and to receive, you know, a mutual agreement about sexual gratification between the two of us. Once I found a female that I could basically, come to those terms with, in which I did. But um, there were other females that led up to that female. Then there were other females after that female, and they didn't bring anything of benefit and usefulness to me. Some never got far as conversation. Some got as far as a meeting. And no, I didn't have sex with all of them. But the point I'm trying to make is that I understood that there is something called a pump and dump as far as women disqualifying themselves from you and you have to move on. And it can work both ways too, because men can disqualify themselves from women. But that's what being consistent is about. You may say one thing previously, but then if you have to change a message, you have to guide the audience into the change of the message and walk them through why the message is changing so that they understand that you're not contradicting yourself. Now, I like Corey Holcomb. I'm a fan of Corey Holcomb. Uh, I catch Corey just about every week. Now, this is why I want to tell you why Corey and both Fresh and Fit are wrong, and that you know people in this space, content creators in this space, are trying to make a subject about his comments about Fresh and Fit. So I'm going to start with Corey. Corey continuously tells you bitches ain't shit, and he's basically talking about black women. And I have supported Corey because Corey has a red pill type message, a very strong message. And Corey primarily deals with black women. He rarely on the. I've never really heard him mention whether he has dealt with white women or not, or women of other races, as much as he talks about black women. I do remember him saying that he has seen different cultures in different countries, and he has specified the age differences, what is suitable, and what isn't versus America. Uh, even when mentioning R. Kelly's situation. So I know Corey primarily deals with black women, and he has a perspective where he feels it is necessary for you as men to know the nature of women based upon what he has observed from himself and how he operates. He also operates from a perspective of transaction or what we call tricking. So he has no shame in that, and nothing wrong with that. I mean, he owns it very, very well. Uh, he also links it to the fact that women have situations like poverty or hypergamy, and that's his go-to card for when he wants to, acquire a woman or have dealings with a woman, whatever type of arrangement that he sets up for himself. But the inconsistency is that the fact that you want to make brothers aware of bitches ain't shit, but you can't get defensive or revolutionary when other men speak out about the same things that you speak of. The only difference was that race was mentioned. However, race is trumped in this society because the behavior overall across the board, if you're dealing with American or westernized women, is the same. It's unacceptable. Now, that's the biggest thing. You say women ain't shit. You primarily talk about black women, but then you want to be revolutionary and defend them um, from other people. And you need to just go ahead and say that, look, it's going to be hard for other races of people to take you serious. It's going to be hard for men of your own race and men in general to take you serious. And by default, it's going to make it hard for us to protect you and stand up for you. So nobody is talking about that. Everybody's just talking about a typical back and forth, but nobody's really breaking down the science of why neither have a right to a back and forth, whether who started or not. In this case, Fresh and Fit didn't start anything. They were just mentioned and referenced, and Corey made an opinion. The back and forth is started by other people talking about what Corey said and making streams about it. That could also cause Fresh and Fit to respond. But I'm just stepping in to say it makes absolutely no sense, really, based upon Corey being very red pill in his message and primarily talking about black women, then kind of contradicting himself and wanting to defend them against another red pill platform. Now, do I agree with Fresh and Fit and the things that they do? No. I agree with their hard work and their hustle, and they do have a great message, but they have some of the poorest examples of women to present to you brothers to have a dialogue with. I understand it to a degree because that is the dominant type of women running amok in this culture. But to bombard you with these women every day and you're not strong minded and understanding that that is for study case purposes only, the average guy can be mesmerized and put into a state of going out and seeking those type of women. So it can put guys in a trance that's untrained when you look at their streams and you constantly see these type of women that they have on their show. That's just one of my key points. But really, my issue with Fresh and Fit is more of a diaspora thing. It's more of a African descent um, denial thing, right? Uh, Fresh is Sudanese, Fit is from Barbados. There is this thing with you have a African diaspora, which is supposed to promote melanated African descendant people abroad all across the world, but yet distinctively when people of African descent come from other cultures, they do have an issue with connecting with or acknowledging the relation to what we call African Americans. Some people call us foundational Black Americans. Then you have other acronyms that's supposed to represent descendants of slavery, ADOS. I don't, what I don't understand based upon my research, proof, and evidence is that African descent is African descent. Doesn't really matter to me. And that's just based on DNA. Uh, so fresh and fit to me, just like most people from African descent that come from outside the U.S., uh, they already have a mentality that they're different or they're not the same or they're not related to you. Now, they could be different based upon, yeah, you did come from a different country or nationality. You may talk different, have somewhat different customs. But I'm here to tell you, Caribbean people and most South American people are Western cultures and have very similarities to America. And I've seen African women from Jamaica to Guyana, uh, then what you call Central America, the Caribbean. I've seen them. They are just as ratchet, have the same style and dress as African American women. Very similar mannerisms. So it's hard for me to believe uh, that is that much different and that you can have such a strong stance on separating black women preferentially uh, compared to your cultures. And now I'm not defending black women in America. I'm just trying to make a similarity that is very, very similar. It's not that much different. Now, what I will say is that the recognition of blackness from African descent people outside the U.S. as related to black people in the US, uh, they want to start being more careful with that, especially if you want to cater to a black audience. Uh, you're dealing with a lot of African American men in this space. This space was created by core majority African American men, and you have African descent guys with a big platform that came from outside the US that want to speak to men in general, so they claim, but they're really speaking to a lot of African American men. And you have to also acknowledge your African descent and acknowledge that you're speaking to a lot of African American men. I'm just, I'm not really concerned with the female aspect. At this point in time, females are females. Whether you want to try to specify the races for the women or not. But case in point, right? I am a descendant of slaves on both sides of my family from my mother to father's side. Everybody I know on both sides of my family are the result of slavery. There has been a few conversations about some Indian being involved on my mother and father's side, both sides, which to me is really unfound, and I can prove it, right? This is going to prove a lot. So, my 23andMe DNA test, which I took the maternal test, just because of the um, female gene that is more dominant in the genetic process, right? I did that in theory to discover that that's not absolutely correct either. So I'm gonna share a couple things with y'all. It seems like it's far fetched, but it is actually related to this title. Um, One of the biggest things is I came back 97% sub-Saharan African in that test, but I wind up being 47% Nigerian. The Nigerian genetics from slavery up until this day, me being a 42-year-old man, as descendants of slaves from both sides of my family, the Nigerian gene overtook all the genetics that has ever led up to me to take almost half the percentage of my makeup. And then you have like mid 20 to 30%. Um, well, actually, it was over 30%. You had over 30% rest of many different other African nations. I had less than 1% European, less than 1% Indian in me. I think I had about 1% Guyanan and less than 1% Asian. So that's just to clear things up about all these African descent people from these other places or other countries that actually come to America that have an attitude that they're different, or they could be they're not the same in some way. It's not true. It also nullifies the fact that people want to make the case that the Indian was actually a black man and that you are already here, and they want to associate you with Indians. It's not true. You are African descent, and you came on those ships. So, for people like Fresh and Fit, they need to make sure that they're probably educated on being African descent before they start trying to speak as if, okay, your culture and your country of origin uh, makes you different. But genetics proves that it doesn't. And then again, Barbados, South American, Caribbean cultures are westernized cultures. The women, some in some cases have a different type of etiquette, but their style, their dress, and a lot of things they do things just as much as the same as American women do. Now, the other thing I wanted to prove to you guys is when I took the maternal test, the database connects you to relatives who've taken the test, so you can actually see a chart and graph of people you connected to, linked to, and related to. Well, what happened was one of my cousins from my father's side popped up in the database, and I had only took the maternal test, and the percentage of relation was the highest of all the other people related to me in my database. So the father's genetics is actually stronger and overrides the maternal genetics based upon people claiming that the female gene, all the genes, especially like during conception, the zygotes and stuff like that, start out female, then transfers into turn it into a male gene. So you truly are the seed of your father. I'm sorry. That's something that's probably get a little bit off subject. But I just wanted to share this with you guys. Like nobody is gonna break stuff down real technical like me, so you can get to the core of the truth of the matter. Uh, Corey is wrong. Fresh and Fit have been wrong, and the approach to when to be in defense of blackness and when to relate to blackness, trying to differentiate between the two. Uh, I wouldn't even put women in the discussion anymore, black women in the discussion anymore. I would just speak on as far as trying to take up for them, defend them. That would be a neutral ground for me because overall they're encompassed into the overall behavior of all women in society right now, and that behavior is not to be tolerated. So they can't be defended at this particular point, and I wouldn't try to defend them. But I wouldn't contradict myself and be red pill in a very strong aspect, and then turn around and try to come to the defense of them. It just as much as uh, there's a question about your validity to your African descent, and you want to cater to and profit off of an African American base, strong base as part of your audience, and yet not only do you have perceptions about black women, you may have perceptions about American black people in general when you're really the same genetically. So there's a lot going on in people's heads as far as identities and beliefs. And their messages, they have to go back and actually think before they start talking and saying stuff. This immediate reaction and opinions and comments, these people got to be careful. But this is your boy, Zulu Gullah. Like, share, subscribe, comment, and I will be back later.